Hello, friends, and welcome to episode number 17 of Nostalgia Talk. And boy, do I have quite the show for you. This show is a treat for my elementary school friends. Guys, today I have on Nostalgia Talk with me Jim Benton. Thank you so much for being here today, Jim.
Thanks so much for having me.
Now, this is pretty big for my elementary school friends. Jim Benton is the author of the Dear Dumb Diary books, and I still remember in grade 4, my friends and I loved those books. We got a big kick out of them, and when I announced this show on Facebook, a lot of my friends were like, "Oh, that's my childhood." Um, my friend Lindsay actually left a comment. She was so excited. So shout out to Lindsay because her birthday was yesterday.
Hi, Lindsay. Happy birthday.
Mm,
Belated. I
yeah.
was just going to say that some of your readers might also know the series I do called Franny K. Stein. That's also mine. And then I also created a character, It's Happy Bunny,
Oh,
which,
that's cute.
which is another thing that I did a gajillion different products with. So they might know me from any of that stuff.
Yeah, I do have some questions about Happy Bunny in here. So
Okay. Good.
I always do my research before doing these things.
I'm not telling you anything you don't already know.
Well, let's see about that. And now let's get down to business. So, first of all, what did you aspire to want to become?
I was always a writer and an artist, and I think that most artists are that way. You start off. I think everybody starts off drawing, and some people stop at some point in their lives. And unfortunately, lots of times it's when they start to unfairly compare themselves to other kids, and they start getting frustrated, and they turn their back on it, which is a shame. And then some of us just become sort of like bigger, hairier versions of that same kid, and we just never stop. And so I started drawing at 2 years old, and I never stopped drawing, and writing too. Writing came very easy to me, with the comics, and it's all sort of interrelated.
So, you basically had that vision. I want to create my own story and draw characters for that story.
Yeah, but you never really articulate it. It's just kind of a calling, and you always do it, and then one day you realize people are paying you to do it. Like I never really sat down. I remember when I was a kid and they would talk to other kids and say, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And that always sounded to me like, "What do you want to be for Halloween?" Like, because I never, it never occurred to me to be anything other than what I was.
So, basically, for Halloween, you went out as you, the
Well,
future
no.
you.
I mean, like, what do you want to do when you grow up? It always sounded a little bit like a costume you were going to put on, and I wasn't ever going to put on a costume. I was just always me. I was always an artist, always a writer, and I just figured I'd always do it. And I was right. I always did.
Cool. So, who or what were some of your biggest influences as an artist and a writer?
Um, I read sort of equal amounts of quality stuff and trash, and kind of like them both equally. So when I was real little, I would like books like Pippi Longstocking was a really great book. I was also reading a lot of Mad Magazine and Cracked Magazine and all of the bootlegs of Mad Magazine, and comic books, and really great books too. Like um, I'm kind of a Shakespeare wonk, so um, I kind of like it all. And I'm also sort of a big dumb fan of most artists. Like, it's anytime I look at something that somebody has drawn or painted, invariably I see something in it that's important and good. And like, it would be impossible for me to dismiss something as, well, that stinks. Like, if I have a low regard for it, it's going to be more like, that's kind of low effort. I bet you they could work harder and do something better there. So I think that my biggest influence was that I've always been a fan of just drawing and writing in general.
Awesome. So, what was your very first ever published book?
The first the first book I ever published was called "Dealing with the Idiots in Your Life," And it was just a book of cartoons, but my editor really liked that particular cartoon. So that was the one that she used on the cover, and that's the one that she titled the book. But it's just a collection of different cartoons. When I originally pitched it, I pitched it as Life on Other Planets, and but she liked the other cartoon better, so that became the title.
Hmm.
And
Interesting.
they still sell it because the deal that I made with Simon and Schuster, this was kind of before things like the internet, you know. So they usually in publishing, if they don't print one of your books for a certain length of time, all the rights revert back to you, and then you
Hmm.
can do with it as you want. With this one, because of print on demand, it's always available. You know, you can go to Amazon and order it, and the book is printed on demand. So in like it's kind of never out of print, so those rights will never revert to me, and I get real measly royalties on it, but it's still in print.
That's lucky then.
Yeah, kind of.
Now, of course, the big thing that you're known for, the big thing that my friends and I all know you for, and pretty much the whole reason that I invited you to come on the show is, of course, big surprise, right? The Dear Dumb Diary books. Oh, man. Wow, this is really taking me back in time to fourth grade. I still remember my friend Kaylee, who's is still one of my closest friends to this day. We would read them in class. My elementary school at the time was separated into two buildings. There was Waverly Memorial, which was grade primary, which is the Canadian word for kindergarten. It was grade primary to 3 for the most part. And then the other school, Elsie Scary, it was like a high school for elementary school kids to us. It was grade 4 to 6. I think the grade 6s are now in junior high here. And yeah, during grade 4, we just loved reading the Dear Dumb Diary books. How did the idea for those books come about?
um, that came about. The Scholastic wanted this book from me. It's Happy Bunny.
Okay.
So the editor there had been um, asking me for a long time to do these books. And I said, you know, and I don't know if you remember it, but it's mostly, it was like kind of rude sayings on t-shirts and buttons and stuff like that. And I had said, Maria, I think that this would be excruciating in a book form. I think it works best as really quick little jokes. And I don't think it's going to work as a book. And so she kept asking me for it. And then one day I got a photo album in the mail, and it was
Ooh.
pictures of people at Scholastic going like this, you know, with their hands together, like, please let us publish this
Kind of
book.
looking like they were praying.
Kind of looked like they were praying. So, and it was like everybody in the department wearing the It's Happy Bunny clothes and hats and stuff like that. So I called Maria and I said, Maria, you know, there's a point where the zebra stops fighting the lioness and it just lies down because it knows it's over. And I'll write these books for you. And but you have to give me a chance to figure out, because the bunny's really judgmental. And so I wanted the kid to be able to come around and sit next to the bunny, and they would kind of like judge the world together. And so she said, that's great. And I said, in the meantime, I've written 4 pages of something I'd like you to take a look at. And it was 4 pages that are still in Dear Dumb Diary. They were in the very first Dear Dumb Diary. And so I sent those in. I think it was a Friday. And on Monday, they called and said, we'd like to buy 4 books in this series immediately. And so they signed up 4 books, and they go, do you have ideas for different books in the series? And I said, yes, fully bullshit. And I just made up titles. And those titles later, I had to come up with the stories that would match the titles that I told them I already had ideas for. So I pitched some of those titles like Am I the Princess or the Frog, with no idea what it was going to be about. It was just it's just a title that I came up with. So so I pitched them, and it turned into 10 million books, 15 different languages, a movie, made for TV movie musical that I did with Jerry Zucker, who did the movie Airplane and Ghost and lots of other.
Airplane is a funny movie.
Yeah, it's terrific. And Jerry Zucker Jerry and his wife were the producers on the Dear Dumb Diary movie.
Whoa, he produced the film?
Yeah, yeah,
Surely, Surely you can't be serious.
Right. Right. So,
I couldn't resist.
yeah, and it was terrific fun. We remain friends to this day, and I think that we'd love to do another project together sometime.
That would be awesome.
And that's kind of the Dear Dumb Diary story. It's they're all drawn with one pen that I used throughout the entire thing, and I always drew on super cheap paper, so because it felt like that was what Jamie would have access to. So I tried to make it as much like as what the main character would be able to write as possible.
Wow. Yeah, with what you were saying about the book titles, that's what always drew me to those books when I was in elementary school. I remember my friend holding one up. It said, "Can adults become human?" She just cracked up laughing. She's like, "Adults are human."
Yeah, right.
How did that name come about?
That was another one of the early titles that I just pitched, saying that I had an idea for it.
Hmm.
So and then I wrote to the title. As the series went on, that was only for about the first maybe 5 or 6. And as the series went on, I actually came up with the titles based on what the actual content was instead of the other way around.
Yeah.
And I think I think we're at 18 books, and Scholastic. I'm talking to Scholastic right now about doing some graphic novel versions. Where
Awesome.
the whole thing is it'll be all new stories, but it will be as a graphic novel.
Nice.
Yeah.
The only real memory I have of the Dear Dumb Diary books, because again, this is going back 12 years. Usually my memory is really, really good, but
Mhm.
not right now at this point. But the only memory I have of the Dear Dumb Diary books was Aunt Carol drove Jamie to school, and she had stopped in the car and she said, "I'm going to be working at your school now."
Right. Yeah. Which I imagine would be like one of the most horrible announcements a kid could ever hear, is that, one of the people in their family is going to be working at the school.
Well, my mom is an elementary school gym teacher.
And did you go to the school she taught at?
No, I went to the school I went to was in the suburb I lived in. She taught in a further suburb in a place called Bedford.
Yeah. Well, you probably felt fortunate that she wasn't your teacher.
Hi, Mom, if you're listening. We've had family friends work at our school before.
Yeah.
My mom's best friend from college, her brother was my junior high gym teacher,
Yeah.
and so sometimes he comes over for dinner, which is nice, but at the same time, it's kind of weird having a past teacher over at our house for dinner.
Yeah. I think in that same book, when Jamie has a teacher at her school, she says, having a teacher in your house, um, it's super weird. It's like having an orangutan in your house.
I guess that explains the book cover of "Can Adults Become Human,"
Yeah.
where they were all looking like animals.
Right. Right.
Yeah, yeah. Normally I would agree, but at the same time, I have a teacher in my house every day.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well,
So,
a big part of how I wrote Dear Dumb Diary was, and we explained this really early. I explained this really early on to my editor, and they were on board with me. And that was, first off, Jamie never really gets that much better as a human being.
okay.
Jamie is an okay human being. She's got a lot of flaws. She's got a lot of virtues. And by the end of each book, she's incrementally better, just a tiny little bit better. And I think that that's probably the most realistic feature of the books, because none of us transform the way characters do in TVs and movies. We
Mhm.
have these experiences, and hopefully we improve. But it's not like Ebenezer Scrooge at the end of Christmas. We don't suddenly love Christmas now. So, and they were okay with it. They also wanted very early on for Angeline, who's the pretty girl in the story and often the object of a lot of envy from Jamie,
Mm.
to be, and like to be a bad human being, like selfish and self-centered. And I said, if I write her that way, I will have written the same pretty girl blonde character that everybody else has ever written. I go, the most important thing about it is that Jamie is just wrong about Angeline. She wants to project on Angeline, but Angeline's actually a good person who just was born with the handicap of being pretty. Like she's not trying that hard. It's just who she is, right? And even though that Jamie resents her, and over time in the course of the series, very often Jamie learns that Angeline is actually quite a good friend to her, but she still can't fully accept it because she envies her so much.
That sounds like a very typical chick flick film.
Yeah, kind of, but there's a lot, but Angeline, I mean, even when I realized that I was writing Angeline a certain way, then I would change that up because, like the Roadrunner Coyote cartoons are really, really funny. But after a while, once you realize that the coyote never catches the Roadrunner, it kind of loses a little something. Like he's just never going to catch him. And so with Dear Dumb Diary, the characters do have little changes now and again, which are like human things. Like humans do that. Like it would be devastating to believe that you were always going to be the brat you were when you were 6, like for the rest of your life. You're not. You're gonna get better. You're gonna improve, and you're gonna backslide once in a while. Sometimes you will be a brat again, but over the long haul, it's like a graph, ups and downs and ups and downs. But the general trend is probably that you become a better human being slowly over time, not dramatic, not quickly.
Wow. I never thought of it that way. After all these years, I never thought of it that way.
Well, there's kind of, I think that if you write the stories well, there's a lot going on behind the pages that you're not aware of, because if you become aware of it, then it becomes real preachy and it becomes, like a lesson. It really should just sort of happen organically, and those things that are occurring should never really be known to the viewer. It's just like the when you were talking about the Muppets earlier and how you're a fan. You don't want to know that there's a hand up Kermit. That's not what you want to know. You just want to be able to appreciate, the jokes and the fun and stuff like that. And what do you mean there's a guy inside Big Bird? I don't want to know that. You shouldn't know that. You shouldn't be thinking about that when you're watching it, because it destroys the fun.
And yet one of my past guests on this show is the guy who's inside of Mr. Snuffleupagus.
Yeah, there's probably 2 people in there, right?
Yes, my friend and mentor Marty Robinson is who actually just came on here a couple of weeks ago. He's in the front, and the back end is played by another puppeteer named Bryant Young.
Mm-hmm.
It's seems like a very complicated thing.
Yeah.
And also, I will add, since we were talking about the funny titles of the Dear Dumb Diary books, believe it or not, it was one of the book titles that inspired me to invite you to the show.
Oh, which one?
Well, it's funny. I was having a bit of a rough week, and at the end of the week, I was thinking to myself, "Oh God, never do anything ever." And
Right.
then I'm thinking to myself, "Wait a minute, I've heard that somewhere before." And so I'm thinking about it for hours and hours and hours. I was like, "Never do anything ever." Where have I heard that before? It took me a little while, and I was like, "Oh, that's the name of one of the Dear Dumb Diary books."
Yeah.
So that's what inspired me to want to invite you.
The movie musical, I can tell you about the actresses in that.
Okay.
Cast that, the girl who played Jamie, Emily.
I think it's pronounced Alin Lind or something.
Yeah, Lind. So she was like perfect. I mean, like flawless in the very first read, like just unbelievable. And Angeline, same thing, perfect. Like the hair and the appearance and everything. And Isabella was really funny. She wasn't an exact match to what I had drawn, but she was really, like a funny actress. And over the course of the filming, they started to say, the weird thing is that the girl playing Angeline is Angeline. Like that's really her real personality. And she is very, very sweet. She's very, very pretty, but she doesn't play on that. And Jamie really is Jamie. Like she's funny, she's silly, she's smart. And then, but Isabella, she's not like Isabella at all.
Oh.
Isabella, the girl who played Isabella, is actually quite nice and quite sweet. As we got further into the project, we realized that she was so much like Isabella that she was playing us, and that she really did have an edgy side that she just didn't reveal until she felt like revealing it. And so she was actually also completely Isabella, because that's kind of Isabella's MO. Isabella's always quite in control of what other people see, and is actually a little Machiavellian. So
Wow.
they turned out to be perfect for the characters.
Wow. So were the characters like Hudson and Isabella, Jamie and Angeline, were they based on people that you know?
They were based on like parts of them are. Like
Okay.
Jamie's kind of like the most developed, and Jamie is she's sort of a collection of lots of people I know, not just girls. So when I started writing the thing, one of the questions that I got a lot was like, how can a grown man write a middle school girl? And my answer was always, well, you know that Stephen King's not a murderer, right? Like you don't have to be, like J.K. Rowling isn't a little boy. So it's sort of a matter of imagining the character. And there's some things I would never be able to write very well without doing a ton of research. Like I couldn't write a first person of a woman's experience having a baby, but I could write her first person experience of, like feeling bad or feeling tired, because we've all had those. So then if I really had to write that scene, I would just do a whole bunch of research. I'd learn about it until I could write about it. So yeah, they're all sort of like bits and pieces of me and other people. But no one person is one other human being. They're chunks stitched together.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So for the Dear Dumb Diary year 2, I almost said Diary of a Wimpy Kid, which is another very popular book series
We
from.
started actually within weeks of each other, like weirdly,
Oh,
2 books.
wow. Yeah, Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Dear Dumb Diary, Junie B. Jones. They were always reading us those in elementary school. I've got quite the collection. I used to have a Dear Dumb Diary collection. Unfortunately, I don't know what came of that, but I still have quite a few Junie B. Jones and Diary of a Wimpy Kid books. So I do apologize for the fact that I'm not totally prepared.
That's okay. So yeah, year 2, we just wanted to see. Partway through, we realized that the books are 30 days long.
Oh,
That's how I write the diary. And so when we just added it up, we realized this has only happened in the course of a year. Like, so now we can just go to year 2. They go to the next grade. So that was just what year 2 was. It was just they were just older.
okay. Are you familiar with the My Weird School book series?
No.
Okay, those I've got quite a collection of that as well. They were around when I was in elementary school, and there was a few similar to the Dear Dumb Diary books. There was a few different series of books. Like it started with My Weird School, which was the characters in second grade, and then as they started to graduate and go into third grade, they made another book franchise called My Weird School Days.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they were in the third grade for about 2 more book franchises before going into fourth.
Yeah, gotcha.
Mm. So the Dear Dumb Diary film that you were talking about, that was your idea, right? Because usually when it comes to
No,
films,
Dear Dumb Diary, we had a lot of entertainment interest in it over the years,
oh,
and like for one reason or another, I didn't want to do it.
okay,
Like the studio I didn't like, or the channel I didn't like, or the production company I didn't like other things that they had done. And I had done entertainment stuff before, so I'm not one of these people that's like like I get all starry eyed when I hear Hollywood, right? Like I know it's just a bunch of work, and it's very, very collaborative. And I always felt like, a book can be a book. It doesn't have to be a TV or a movie show, or a movie or television show. And not not needing a deal is the best way to get a good deal. Is if you don't really care if you do it or not, that is the secret for getting a good deal. So by the time Jerry and Janet Zucker came along, I had already passed on a lot of opportunities. And so my agent called and said, listen, Jerry Zucker wants to do Dear Dumb Diary. He wants to take a meeting on this. And I said, if he's really interested, tell him to fly to Detroit. I'm not going to fly out there for this meeting.
Okay.
And so they said, okay, we'll tell him. And they said, okay, sure. We'll meet you at the airport. So I met with Jerry and Janet, and I liked Jerry so much, and I liked Airplane so much, and Janet too. I mean, like immediately, I liked Janet. So it was sort of like, again, that zebra with the lion, where you just say, okay, we're gonna make this movie. So and they got a director, Kristen Hange. She had won or at least gotten a nomination for Rock of Ages on Broadway. So
Oh,
she was really good with
cool.
musicals. And Jerry felt like, let's do this as a musical so that it's different, so that it's a lot different than any other kids movie like this. So we worked with a bunch of really talented musicians, and it turns out all of our characters could sing, especially Jamie, which was the most important. And uh, we had great songs, terrific songs.
Wow. I have a feeling that the production meeting with Jerry, once you guys officially decided, went something like, "We have clearance, Roger, Roger."
Right, Jerry's actually quite. He's very, very funny in the room. He's very, very funny in person, but he's not like big and wacky. He tends to be a little bit more quiet and a little bit more thoughtful. And no, but he's hilarious. He's very funny.
I bet. So, if we were to think about the characters from the Dear Dumb Diary books in the present day, because those, when was the first one? 2004, I think?
2004 was the first book. Yeah.
Okay. And that was like 17 years ago. How old was Jamie in the first one, or in that
I
franchise?
never specified age, and I never specified exact grade.
Okay.
We just called it middle school.
Okay. What do you think the characters would be up to right now if they had aged properly?
um, well, we know a little bit already, like if we use the girls who portrayed them, and that is they grew up quite pretty. That's one thing that we know. And also I think that, like, there's a lot of people who said, like, who asked questions about the relationship between Angeline and Jamie, and they would say, like, is Jamie kind of like in love with Angeline? Is she, like, she really has like an emotional love for her? And I would say I don't know, because I never wrote that particular chapter. Like, maybe when she got older, maybe all of this turmoil and envy and all of this stuff, maybe eventually one day it did blossom into a relationship, or maybe they're just friends, or maybe Jamie sort of realized that Isabella was um, not always the best friend, and maybe she doesn't see Isabella anymore. Over the course of 17 years, people can drift apart and drift back together, and lots of things can happen. So I think when I write the graphic novel, I'm still going to keep them in middle school.
Okay.
So I'll just kind of wave this magic wand, like, oh, they're still in middle school and whatever, like they never aged, because I like the characters right there. I like them at that place in time, because it sort of feels as though like the really, really big problems in the world haven't really invaded yet for a lot of kids.
Mm-hmm.
Like their problems, the problems you have in middle school are still kind of manageable. You can kind of solve them, you can kind of endure them a little bit easier. And some of the really tremendously huge problems haven't quite landed yet. So I think that's why I'll probably keep them in that middle school time.
Mm. I would love to, just, this is just me, but it would be kind of interesting to see them in high school or college. I know
Yeah,
that probably won't ever happen, but
in one of the songs in the Dear Dumb Diary movie, um, Jamie explores, like what her life's going to be like. And we have comics, sort of rolling past about, is she going to be an astronaut? Is she going to be this? So she's thinking about it. So we touch on it a little bit. The problem with that is it's tough to go back. As soon as you create that canon of what they look like in the future, it's tough to go backwards in time in the story without serving that canon, that future canon. So yeah, it might be, you know, like maybe in a dream sequence, maybe I would do that.
It's like in those TV shows that get rebooted, pretty much,
Right.
where they have that issue where they have to
Yeah,
go back.
I heard that the gal who did Buffy the Vampire Slayer passed on it.
Oh,
She said she wouldn't do a reboot because she's too grumpy to play Buffy now.
have you ever thought about maybe doing a TV series based on Dear Dumb Diary?
Uh, yeah, we've talked about it before, and it's something that that would be great to do. The you know, the movie was something that was a lot of fun, and if a TV series came out of it, in fact, Stan Rogow, who did Lizzie McGuire, he was interested in doing it.
I love that show.
It was a great show. That was a terrific show, and in fact, that was one of those shows that kind of belonged on network television. It didn't just belong on cable, and because I also thought it was really funny, and Stan was interested in doing a series, and I think at the time he was working with Disney, and like when you're pitching stuff at networks, and maybe some of your listeners, you know, aspire to be TV writers or authors or something like that. Sometimes it's just timing, you know, like in that moment when you go in and you pitch your idea, they've got X amount of dollars. Like they don't have unlimited funds. They have so much money, and they've been told to look for a certain thing. You know, like, is it, you know, halls and malls? That was one big thing for a long time. Put the kids in halls, like in schools, and malls. And then other time, and then later, you know, well, it needs to be more agenda. We need to have kids that are having trouble with their identities and stuff like that. So yeah, you can have a great idea for a really great show, and you take it in. It's not the right timing. Take it back in a year.
I'll remember that. I'm a film student, so
Yeah.
I'll keep that in mind.
Sometimes they don't have the money. Sometimes it's just bad timing.
Yeah, it's fair. I just recently started watching Blossom, and there was I feel like most of the scenes took place in either a kitchen, a living room, or in a bedroom.
Yeah, yeah. That's that three camera formula. You know,
Ah,
that was that three camera formula was invented um, by Lucy and Desi Arnaz.
oh,
So, and it's never really been changed. So TV shows are typically either single camera or three camera. They're called single cameras, like Malcolm in the Middle, where it's like, it feels like a movie, like there's one camera. And sitcoms, usually in front of an audience, there's three cameras that they just keep going back and forth between. And usually it's one long set. If you Google up what the original set for I Love Lucy looks like, you'll see the dawn of television right there. Exact, and they've done it that way ever since.
wow. So moving on a bit past Dear Dumb Diary, can you talk a little bit about the Happy Bunny?
Sure. So it's Happy Bunny. Like my studio, you can't really, well, you can't see on this, but I have bulletin boards everywhere, and I just pin stuff, ideas up, you know, all the time. I pin them up, and if it's something that kind of strikes me as funny, for a long time, I might do something with it. After a while, if I get tired of it and it's not sparking for me, it just goes in a file cabinet or something. But It's Happy Bunny was one that I had doodled up, and every time I walked past it, I kind of laughed a little bit. And so I decided to take it out, and I had already had a background in licensing. So I took it out to potential licensees, and I spent about 3 years like I was talking to a brick wall, where they would say, yeah, I think it's funny, but I don't think my customer will understand it. And, you know, the response is, well, your customer's probably just as smart as you are. You know, like, I think that they'd understand it. And it wasn't until Hot Topic took a big bite. You know, they took in 3 or 4 shirts, and they took in some stickers and stuff like that. And it just blew out. It did great. So Hot Topic is also kind of a bellwether store. Other stores shop Hot Topic to see what's coming. Like they sort of use Hot Topic as an indicator.
Right.
So if it starts doing well there, then other stores are interested, and other licensees are interested. And so, you know, people who wanted to do lunchbox and sports drinks and everything, they start contacting you to do product. And then before you know it, we had done $750 million at retail. It was a huge brand, and won 5 top Lima awards. And I did stuff for Drug Free America, and I did stuff for breast cancer awareness and everything using the character. And yeah, and it's still, we still sell it. And in fact, there's a big drive right now for me to bring it back, and I think we probably are going to bring it back on some level. Although it has to be changed a little bit, but and it also has to remain edgy. So, because if it's not edgy, there's no point in doing it. Hello Kitty already does that better than I can. So, my contribution is like something a little bit, rude and snarky and edgy. That's what I do.
I'll have to look for It's Happy Bunny next time I'm at Hot Topic. There's a Hot Topic in Moncton, New Brunswick, not that far away from where I am.
Yeah.
When it's safe to go to New Brunswick, I'll have to check it out.
You're not going to find it at Hot Topic right now.
Okay.
This was a big program with them, and eventually, we moved it into big box stores like Walmart and Target. And then, like after it kind of run its course, because I started this like 21 years ago, It's Happy Bunny. After it kind of ran its course, I sort of let it kind of fizzle out. And it still does some business, it just kind of keeps going. But the next time you see it, it will be because we've relaunched it.
Oh, well, I'll be sure to promote it for you.
Yeah. Okay.
So one final question before we wrap up. Actually, before we do wrap up, I can't believe I almost forgot about this. Can you talk a little bit about Franny K. Stein?
Yeah. So Franny is one that I did. I actually wrote Franny for my daughter.
Oh.
And when she was little, she liked, princesses and unicorns and stuff, but only a little bit. She also liked, spooky stuff and scary stuff and everything. And there wasn't anything like that. So I wrote Franny. And I wrote the first Franny. I wrote the whole thing out, illustrated it, and then I pitched it to 3 publishers.
Mm-hmm.
And all 3 of them bid on it. And so we had like a bidding war for a while, and then finally I went with Simon and Schuster, and I did it there for I don't know how many. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I guess there's 9 Franny books. I'm just finishing up one right now.
Nice.
And, yeah, Franny's always been a favorite character of mine because she's really strong and tough. She's got about as many boyfriends as girlfriends because she's a whole lot of woman. And I kind of thought that Franny would sort of be a character that girls would like better. That's what the market would be. Boys like her too because she's scary and dangerous and fearless. And they like her too. I think it's probably about 50-50. And the whole, like the tent poles for her is that Franny gets in trouble, like bad trouble, like bad trouble. But she saves herself. Like Franny cleans up her own messes. Franny does not need a knight in shining armor. She wouldn't want it. And she takes care of her own stuff, her own problems.
Sounds like a very strong person then.
She is. Franny is a very strong little girl. Franny would be a very strong grown woman, but all of this occurs in a little girl.
So final question before we wrap up. What are you working on right now? I already know about the graphic novels, but is there anything else in the books for you?
There's Catwad. Catwad is a really big series that I do with Scholastic. And I have something called Attack of the Stuff that I do with Paper Cuts. That's a graphic novel company. A character called Clyde that I did with IDW, which is a big comic company. I have a sort of kind of a funny educational thing coming out with HarperCollins called Jop and Blip. And let's see, I'm working on something for DC.
Ooh.
It's a little bit top secret, but it sort of revolves around, it's funny, but it does sort of revolve around my favorite comic book character. I can't tell you his name, but I can't tell you his real name, but his superhero name is Batman. So That's
Your secret is safe with me.
so, and that was actually kind of a really great thing to figure out how we could do it, because they're very protective of that trademark, obviously. And and I had an idea for something. They asked me to pitch them something, and so I pitched them something, and it took a long time to figure out the contract of it all, because they have to be protected and I have to be protected. But we finally came up with something that would work. So that's another project I got going.
Do you think maybe DC would want to make that into a feature film? They've done some pretty wicked feature films lately.
They could. I mean, it would work as one if they wanted to, and it doesn't interfere with the character's canon at all. Like I wouldn't be doing something that later they would have to figure out why Batman did something, because I'm coming at it from a completely different angle. So yeah, they could do it. It would have to be funny. I mean, most of the stuff I do is funny, and pretty silly.
It would probably work then as a Marvel film, because a lot of the Marvel films are a good little cross between comedy and violence.
Yeah. It could be that way. It could be that way. These involve kids, so it wouldn't be like a Deadpool sort of comedy. But
yeah, I was about to say, yeah, Deadpool has kids doing funny but very sometimes adult stuff all the time.
Yeah, well, I think Deadpool is the first R-rated superhero.
I think so, yeah. And
Maybe
then,
at least in the Marvel universe.
yeah, and then there was the film Logan, which I saw.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was a pretty good.
Oh, maybe
film.
that was the first. Maybe that was the first one.
No, Deadpool came out before Logan, but Logan was a sequel to the Wolverine films, which were PG-13.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well,
all right, we solved that.
Well, Jim, thank you so much for agreeing to come on Nostalgia Talk.
Sure.
I have a feeling that a lot of my friends are probably very happy listening to this, because I remember once you and I got it scheduled, I texted Kaylee. I was like, Kaylee, guess who I got to come on Nostalgia Talk?
It's great. I think it's cool that you're doing these too.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun, and I have a lot more interviews and a lot more bonus showcases coming soon. I actually did some, to the listeners, I did some digging today, and I found some pretty cool stuff that I am going to showcase on some more Nostalgia Talk bonus videos, and I can't wait for you to see those. So in the meantime, peace.
Peace. Thanks very much.